I want to teach you some advanced vocabulary to help you be more accurate and precise when you're describing people, places, or even the way that you move. So if you are someone who enjoys building your vocabulary, please subscribe, turn on notifications. That way I can become your teacher. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about trying to help you reach your fluency goals. So in this hour-long mega lesson, I'm going to teach you many different adjectives, nouns, and verbs to help you be more descriptive. Before we begin, I want to make a quick announcement because if you would like to practice and improve your speaking skills, check out the link down below in the description if you would like to learn more about my speaking course. It's all about trying to help you speak confidently, speak clearly, and speak naturally. Each week there is a different speaking topic. You will learn vocabulary related to that topic. We warm up with either pronunciation or connected speech. We do a lot of different engaging speaking activities, and I'll try to teach you some of the language nuances, like when to use certain words and phrases. Let's go ahead and begin and learn many descriptive words to help you build your vocabulary. Let's talk about some advanced adjectives that you can use to describe places. And let's go ahead and begin and talk about some words you can use to describe, like, well, the landscape, mountains, beaches, lakes. So the first word that I have for you is serene. It just means calm and peaceful. So in this case, it's like you're saying that the landscape looks undisturbed. It's very calm, it's very peaceful. I could say, when driving through the countryside, the landscape appeared serene. Now, you can use this word to describe other things. You could say a person looks serene. And so I just want you to know that, yes, these adjectives are very useful. You can use them to describe different places, different things. I just want to give you something to associate each word with. So the next word that I have for you is stunning. And if you're describing something you see, the landscape as stunning, it means it's extremely beautiful. So this word is often used with the word view, and you might talk about a stunning view. I could say that if you go to Yosemite National Park, there are so many stunning views, and this is true. I would highly recommend you visit Yosemite if you ever travel to the US. Picturesque. This means that something is visually attractive. So that suffix on the end there, that esque, it means like or resembling. So in this case, it's like you're saying something looks like or resembles a picture or a painting. And I could say the view from the mountaintop was picturesque. It looked like it belonged maybe on a postcard. The next adjective is desolate. Desolate, if you're describing a place as desolate, it means empty and not attractive. And this definitely has more of a negative connotation. So I might think of the desert. It's very empty. It's not a place that I want to spend a lot of time, so I could describe it as desolate. Or I could say, after the fire, the forest looked desolate and lifeless. It was empty, it's unattractive, it's desolate. Then we have the word unspoiled. This is a great word. Now spoiled means something is ruined, so that has a negative connotation. So unspoiled has a positive connotation, and you're saying that something is beautiful because it has not been damaged or ruined by people or development. And you could describe some land as unspoiled. I could say the rainforest is unspoiled, which is what makes it so unique. And the next word is pristine. Pristine means, well, in very good condition. And often people may use this with the word condition. Something is in pristine condition. But if we're talking about a place, I would think that, well, this place is well kept, there's no trash. And when I think of the word pristine, I would think of Japan. If you've ever been there and you drive outside the city, it looks pristine. There's no trash. It's really well maintained, and it looks in very good condition. Next, I want to talk to you about words that you can use to describe the atmosphere of a place. These are great adjectives to talk about, well, the mood or the feeling of a place, like tranquil. So tranquil means, well, peaceful and calm, really without any noise. It's very similar to serene, but in my opinion, serene would more often be used to talk about the way a place looks, whereas tranquil really captures like that feeling of calm and peacefulness. I could say I traveled to this picturesque beach with stunning views, and it was so tranquil. It was just very calm and peaceful. The next adjective is vibrant. I really like this one. It means exciting, energetic, full of enthusiasm, and you could use it to describe like a city and talk about the atmosphere. It's very vibrant. But I think this word is great for describing things like festivals and talking about the atmosphere. I could say that Carnival is one of the most vibrant festivals in the world. The colors, the dancing, just the mood. It's just, yes, it's definitely vibrant. And the next adjective is homey. So if you say that a place is homey, it means that it's just comfortable and cozy. And notice it has the word home in it because I think people often associate home as being comfortable and cozy. But in this case, you're not going to use it to talk about your home. You would really use it to talk about another place like a hotel or a room. So I could say that I stayed in a small hotel along the coast with a homey atmosphere. And then we have the word bustling. Bustling means very active and busy, and you could think of big cities. Big cities have an atmosphere that is bustling. For example, Times Square in New York City is always bustling with tourists, all right? Just has that atmosphere, that busy mood, that busy feeling. And speaking of cities, let's talk about some adjectives that you can use to describe cities or towns, like renowned. So if you say that a city or town is renowned for something, it means that it's famous for something. And you're typically going to follow this adjective with the word for. I could say that Paris is renowned for the Eiffel Tower. All right, people think of this landmark when they think of Paris. Or Italy is renowned for pizza. I think connecting it with food, this is a great way to use this adjective. A place is renowned for some food. Cosmopolitan is a great adjective. It means including people from many different countries. So Hong Kong is a cosmopolitan city. New York City is a cosmopolitan city. Then we have walkable, and I included this one because I like places that are walkable. I like to walk. It means that a place is, well, easy or safe to walk in. And you have that suffix, that able, which means able to do. You're able to walk. And I think often you're going to use this adjective and say that maybe a place is easily walkable or it's not walkable. I could say the city had many pedestrian streets, so it was easily walkable. And then there's overcrowded, which means containing too many people or things. And if you're going to use it to describe a place, you're probably referring to too many people. And it's a great word for adding emphasis instead of just saying a place is crowded. I remember traveling to Dubrovnik, Croatia. It's a beautiful city, but the old town was definitely overcrowded. Next is spacious. This is a word that I really like, and it just means large with a lot of open space. And if you describe a city or town as spacious, perhaps you're talking about, well, like the streets or just the layout. Maybe there are a lot of parks, and it makes it feel like it's spacious. Parts of New York City are overcrowded, but if you go to Central Park, it is a spacious area. Another great adjective is charming. It just means pleasant or attractive, and maybe when traveling, I could say, I discovered this charming little street that was very spacious and not overcrowded. Then we have quaint. And this is a little different than charming because it means attractive because of being old-fashioned. So maybe I could tell you that I walked down this charming cobblestone street that had these quaint little cafes on both sides. And now let's talk about describing buildings, structures, or landmarks with adjectives like iconic. And iconic means very famous or popular, and it's often referring to the symbol of something. And you may even use this word with landmark and talk about an iconic landmark. So if you travel to Sydney, Australia, the Opera House is an iconic landmark. And then there's contemporary, which means belonging to the present. And often you're going to use this adjective to talk about, well, the architecture, the way that buildings or homes look. So I could say that, well, Dubai is a very modern city with contemporary architecture. And I'm really talking about the way the buildings look. Majestic. It means beautiful, powerful, and causing great admiration. And you could describe a structure as majestic. I could say the London Tower Bridge is majestic. The Golden Gate Bridge is majestic. The Liberty Bridge in Budapest, right outside my door, is majestic. And those are just some examples. You don't have to describe only bridges as majestic. Now let's talk about some adjectives that are, well, not so good, like gaudy. So if you say that, well, a building or a structure looks gaudy, then you're really saying that it's just unpleasantly bright or showy. So I think that Las Vegas has some gaudy hotels and casinos. I know some others might think that they look majestic, but I think they look a little gaudy. Then there's another useful adjective, dilapidated, which means old and in poor condition. So think of like a building that's, well, it's starting to fall apart. So if I said that the neighborhood was abandoned a long time ago and now the buildings are dilapidated. And then I have a few words to talk about, well, just like a general location when referring to some place, like out of the way. And if you say that some place is out of the way, it means that it's, well, just far away from where people usually live or go. And yes, you're probably referring to like a building or structure like a restaurant. I could say, we ate at this out-of-the-way restaurant, but the food was really great. I'm really saying that the location was just far away from where people usually go. And then I have an idiom, which is also an adjective phrase, and that is off the beaten path. Or you could say off the beaten track. Both of them are okay. And this just means that a place is, well, not known or popular. And typically, you're going to use this in a positive sense. I could tell you that I went hiking in Corcovado National Park in Costa Rica. There were not many people around. It was off the beaten path. And I really like that. And then we have God-forsaken. And you would use this adjective to describe a place that is, well, unattractive and contains nothing interesting or pleasant. And often you may use it with the word place, and you talk about a God-forsaken place. And the other thing I would say is you might use this like in the moment, like to express your temporary feeling about a place. Perhaps you're having a bad day, you're frustrated, and you feel that just, yes, some place is just a God-forsaken place. I could say summer in Florida is extremely hot. And Disney World is usually overcrowded. And if I were there, I'd probably think, I just want to get out of this God-forsaken place. There are too many people. It's too hot. It just sounds like a God-forsaken place to me. I want to teach you some new verbs, and they're kind of advanced verbs, but they are all about movement. These are verbs that you can use to describe different types of movement. And what I've done is that I've put them in categories to help you better understand the meaning of the verb, but also give you an idea as to when you might use these verbs. So let's begin with walking and running. If you're talking about that movement, walking and running, there are different verbs that you can use. You can use strut. And if somebody is strutting, it's talking about the way somebody is walking, and it is more of a very confident walk, perhaps even an arrogant walk as well. And you could say that they are strutting. The next one is stagger. And to stagger means to walk with great difficulty, almost as if you are about to fall over. And often I think you would use this verb in the present tense, like you're talking about something that's happening right now, and you would say, he is staggering or she is staggering. And also, I think it's commonly used when referring to somebody who maybe has had too much to drink. they've had a lot to drink, they don't really have a lot of control over what they're doing, and they're walking with great difficulty, then you could say that this person is staggering. Then we have the verb to bolt, and this is just to move really fast, almost like a run, and you might bolt to get somewhere. For example, I often would use this if I'm talking about trying to get to an airplane and I'm late, and I might say, wow, I bolted to the airplane. I was running behind and I had to run. I bolted to that airplane. The next verb is slip. And this is talking about moving, that you're moving quietly so that somebody doesn't notice you. And often you're going to follow this verb with a preposition. So you might slip by someone or slip past someone. Both of those mean the same thing. You're just trying to get by this person without being noticed. You could also slip inside or slip outside of some place. Maybe you forgot something at work and you don't want your boss to see you. You might slip inside the office and get whatever you need to get, and then you're going to need to slip outside because you don't want anybody to see you. And then we have the verb to drag one's feet. Now, this is an idiom, and it means that you are moving reluctantly. You're moving slowly, but you really don't want to be moving forward, and you could say, well, you're dragging your feet. So for example, let's say that, well, maybe you and I, we're traveling somewhere and we're late. We need to get to the gate. And I'm like, okay, we need to go. We need to bolt to that airplane. But you just want to take your time a little bit. Maybe you're like, hey, let's go get a snack before we get on the airplane. Maybe I'll say, hey, stop dragging your feet. We need to go. We need to bolt. Now, this idiom can also be used in other situations as well. It doesn't always have to be talking about movement. It could be referring to progress as well. So if you have some work that you need to do, but you're trying to avoid doing it, you are procrastinating, you could also say then that you're dragging your feet, that you're trying to avoid working on some project, you don't want to do it. I think we've all been there before, but maybe your colleague, your coworker, or even your boss might come over and tell you, look, you need to finish this project, stop dragging your feet. Now let's talk about some verbs that you can use if you're driving or flying. You're in the car, you're in the plane, and well, one thing we could say is hitchhike, to hitchhike. And this means that you get a free ride with someone in a vehicle. So typically you're talking about driving, you're on the road, you're standing on the road, you got your thumb out, and you are trying to hitchhike to some location, and perhaps somebody would stop and pick you up to hitchhike. Now, I don't think it's as common nowadays. In some places, people might even say it's dangerous. But just so you know, in case you see somebody doing it on the side of the road, they are trying to hitchhike. Another verb, which I think is very common nowadays, is carpool. To carpool with someone or carpool with others, because it refers to traveling by car in a small group, either to protect the environment or just to save money. Perhaps save on using gas, and people will carpool to work, or they will carpool to school, and they'll ride together in a small group to carpool. Then we have the verb leapfrog, and this just means to take turns moving ahead of each other. So I think you would use this to describe a situation in which you are driving, maybe on the interstate. One person is passing the other, and then they pass you back, and then you pass them again, and back and forth you go. And you could refer to this situation, and you are leapfrogging each other, to leapfrog. And I think this happens when people perhaps are driving on an interstate and you want to pass a car and you go in front, and then you're like, okay, I'm in front now. And then next thing you know, they pass you. They just leapfrog you, and then you want to pass them again. That is the situation in which you might use this verb or hear somebody talking about it, to leapfrog. Then there's the verb swerve, to swerve. And you could use this if talking about driving or flying. And what it means is it's a sudden change in direction, especially if somebody has been moving in a straight line and then they suddenly change directions and swerve to the left or swerve to the right. to swerve. And finally, we have the verb soar, which is really for flying because it just means that you are flying high. And you could describe a plane and say that the plane is soaring through the air. It is flying high, it is soaring. Now let's talk about some verbs that you could use to describe the way perhaps certain animals might move. And as I tell you these verbs, I'll tell you an animal that I think of, and just to give you something to associate the word with. So you could use the verb glide, to glide. And this just means a continuous motion. And what I think of is perhaps a bird. Birds might glide through the air. Or maybe you're talking about like a swan or a duck, the way it moves across the water, and you could say that it is gliding. It is just a smooth, continuous motion. Now, we could also say slither. And this is talking about moving by sliding and twisting. And almost always I would think of a snake. And you would say that the snake slithers. That is how snakes move. They twist, they slide, and they slither. Or you could use the word wobble. I think of a penguin because it's talking about like moving, you're like going back and forth from side to side. And you're walking in a way that shows that there is poor balance. Because when penguins walk, they kind of shake, and they almost look like they're about to fall over. They don't have very good balance, and you could then say that they look like they are wobbling. They're just wobbling along, and that's how they move. Then we have the verb gallop, which I think is often used to describe the way a horse moves, because it refers to an animal who is running and all 4 feet are off the ground at the same time. They're running, the horse is galloping. And then there is the verb wiggle. And I've included this verb because I think you could use it if you're holding an animal. And you're holding the animal and maybe the animal does not want to be held. So it's going to start wiggling. It's going to move back and forth from side to side, up and down. And they're just these really small, quick movements because maybe the animal is trying to escape. Perhaps you're holding a puppy and the puppy wants to get down and it just starts wiggling, to wiggle. Now let's talk about some verbs that you can use to talk about situations. So in this case, it's not really always going to be a physical movement that you're referring to, but we're talking about a situation that you may need to move in one way or another. Let me give you some examples about what I'm talking about. So the first one I have for you is approach, to approach. And this just means to get nearer and nearer to someone or something. Now, we could use this verb to describe some actual physical distance, some situation. I could say, well, hey, we are approaching our final destination. We are getting nearer and nearer to this destination. But you could also use it if there is some problem or situation that you don't know how to solve. And you could say something like, okay, how are we going to approach this issue? How are we going to get closer to it? And in that case, you could use the word approach. How are we going to approach this issue? How are we going to approach this problem? What is our plan? What are we going to do? Because we need to, get closer to it in order to solve it or remedy some situation. How are you going to approach this? Then we have the verb circumvent. And what it means to circumvent something is to basically avoid something, usually in a clever way. You're trying to go around some type of obstacle. For example, maybe, a situation that all of us have is, we have to pay taxes. And perhaps there is some type of tax we want to avoid. We want to get around this, and you might try to circumvent the tax law. And I could say, we discovered this new way to circumvent the tax laws, and we don't have to pay this tax. So if you want to circumvent something, you're just trying to avoid it. You're trying to go around it in some clever way. And then we have the verb smuggle. To smuggle something is to move something secretly. And often I think we're talking about something illegal. So you might hear it being used In the context of drugs, people might smuggle drugs. You could also smuggle other people. But in either case, you're talking about moving something secretly, and yes, it's often illegal to smuggle. Next is lag, and this just means that, well, you're making slow progress and it's usually behind some other people. So in that case, it's quite often that you would follow this verb with the preposition behind, to lag behind someone, or you're lagging behind. You're making slow progress and, well, you're behind everyone else. You are lagging. And then we have the verb spiral, which it means that some situation, it's getting worse and worse, and it's becoming more difficult to control. And quite often you would probably hear that entire phrase and you'd say that some situation, it is spiraling out of control. That's not a good thing. You don't want any situation to spiral out of control. So I hope this lesson was easy to follow. I hope it was easy to understand these verbs by breaking them into these different categories, because that is the way I wanted to approach this lesson. That is how I wanted to approach this situation. Because the next time that you see someone moving, I hope you'll be able to identify that. If you see somebody strutting, or maybe you see them staggering, or perhaps you see somebody on the road hitchhiking, you'll be able to associate that movement with the correct verb so that you can more accurately express your thoughts, opinions, and ideas. As always, I would encourage you to listen for these verbs, try to identify them if you're reading something, or even use them in conversation if you happen to be talking about the way something moves. I want to teach you 20 different nouns to help you describe people. And these nouns would describe somebody's, well, their profession or their personality or even their characteristics. So as I go through and we talk about these nouns, again, I want you to try to associate these words with a person that you know. Let's begin with profession. Maybe somebody's job, what they do for work, or maybe even a position that they have for their work. And we will begin with the noun amateur. And if you say that someone is an amateur, it means that they do some type of hobby or activity for fun. They are not a professional. This is not how they make a living. They don't typically get paid for it. And you could say that he or she is an amateur. The next noun is a tutor. Now, this noun, it's talking about education because it's a person who will help a child study outside of school in order to give them extra help. And you would say that this person is a tutor, maybe in math, in science, even in English. Anybody could have a tutor. Mostly we're talking about children, but it could be a high school student, a university student, even an adult could have a tutor if they want extra help. Now, let's stick with education, and the next noun is a scholar. This is talking about a person who studies a subject in great detail, especially in university. And if they study it for a long time and they know it very well, you could say that they are a scholar.
Amy is a decorated scholar. She forged a successful career in journalism.
Jimmy's met a new young lady.
Brenda, she's really something. Rhodes Scholar.
Impressive.
Well. Quite a scholar, I see. Look, Kitty, a man of letters. Is your book?
The next noun is, well, it's actually two nouns that mean the same thing, and that is big fish, or you could say a big wig. And in either case, it's talking about a person who is powerful and important, and it usually refers to a position within a company. And maybe you're talking about the boss, and they are the big wig, or perhaps somebody else in the company, and you say, wow, this person, they're a big fish, all right? They're a very important, influential, and powerful person, a big fish or a big wig.
Well, Lois, I'm off to my first day as a corporate bigwig.
And we have information that a mobster by the name of Marco Ocha moved to Paris about 6 months ago. He's the one, he's a big fish.
Then we have the noun one's right hand. And if you're talking about, well, one's right hand, you're not really talking about the hand. You're talking about a person who supports someone else, usually at work. And you could say, well, he's my right hand, or she's my right hand. She's always helping me get stuff done, and she supports my work. one's right hand. You may also use this as, another noun, and people might say, a right-hand man. And if somebody is like the right-hand man, then that is the person who would help somebody else, especially at their work, a right-hand man. Then we have the word why am I having such trouble with this word? Then we have the word valedictorian. And this is talking about the person, really the student, who has the highest grades at the end of high school. So when high school finishes, the person with the highest grades, that person is the valedictorian. And typically they will give a speech at the graduating ceremony when school finishes. Now, I don't know if this is the same for all high schools all over the world, but especially in the United States, the person with the highest grades, they are called the valedictorian, and they would give a speech when at the graduating ceremony, valedictorian. And I'm having a very tough time saying that. I was not the valedictorian. That is okay. But it's a word that you may hear if you're watching a TV show or movie and they're talking about somebody who was very smart in high school. They did very well, and he or she was the valedictorian. Valedictorian, yes.
Right now, I'm the best student. I'm gonna be the velociraptor.
You trying to say valedictorian?
Now let's talk about nouns that are related to someone's personality, kind of talking about the type of person that they are. So you could say that somebody is a dilettante, and this is talking about a person who is very interested in a subject, but doesn't really have a deep understanding of it. And I think all of us can relate to this, that we might be interested in some area of study or something in general, whether it's cars, fashion, computers, and we know about it because we're interested in it, but we don't really have a deep understanding because, well, maybe it's not our job. And you could say that we are just dilettantes in that regard. So, for example, maybe somebody, they're very interested in politics, and you could say they are a political dilettante. They're interested in learning about it, but it's not their job, and they don't have a very deep understanding of it, dilettante. Then we have the noun aficionado, and this is actually a Spanish word that means fan, but an aficionado is a person who is very interested and enthusiastic in learning about some topic. And you'd say, wow, I am really a soccer aficionado. I love it. Or I am a cigar aficionado. There's actually a magazine about cigars called Aficionado. And I could say that all of you are vocabulary aficionados because you are interested and enthusiastic about learning new words and phrases. And you are not dilettantes because you have a deeper understanding of these words. You're an aficionado. Then we have the word confidant. And if you say that somebody is a confidant, it is a person that you really trust and you are willing to share your feelings and secrets with that person. You could say that he is my confidant, that he is the person that I will tell secrets to. Or for me, I'd really say my wife. She is my confidant. If I have some problems, some secrets, and I just need to tell somebody, I need some help, she is my confidant and I will tell her. Maybe not all the secrets, but most of them.
You need to choose her to be your vice presidential candidate.
No. I chose you as a trusted confidant.
Confidant of mine has told me that when he goes, Sansa Stark goes with him.
Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant.
Then we have the noun proponent, and this is talking about a person who speaks publicly in support of some plan or action, and you might often follow this word with the preposition of, that he is a proponent of some issue. She is a proponent of saving the dolphins, that she wants to publicly support it and talk to others about it. She's a proponent of saving the dolphins. I think all of us are probably a proponent of something. If you think about something that you believe in, that you want to support, then you could say you are a proponent of this thing. The next noun I have for you is a guru. And a guru is It's more of a spiritual leader if you're thinking about like Hinduism, but it's also somebody who is kind of a teacher as well. And you may hear this word used in that context. It makes me think of somebody who is wise and very spiritual, and they want to help others and teach others, and you could say that they are a guru. Then we have the noun gourmet. And if somebody is a gourmet, then it means that they know a lot about food. They're very knowledgeable about food, and they typically like to eat fancy and expensive food, and this person is a gourmet.
I like it better than tuna helper myself. Don't you, Clark?
You're the gourmet around here, Ed.
What else did Lance tell you about me?
This is your real gourmet.
Oh, yeah?
These sandwiches are delicious, Mrs. Elton. You really are a gourmet.
Next is the noun humanitarian. And if you say that somebody is a humanitarian, it means that they are interested in helping other people, especially people who may be suffering in some way. And they may be donating money, donating clothes. They are involved in some type of activity. And you could say, well, you know, this person, they're a great person. They're a humanitarian. Personally, I think all of us should be humanitarians, and we should try to give back and help others who are in need. Now let's talk about nouns that pretty much refer to people's characteristics, their emotions, their behaviors. And you could say that somebody is, well, a coward. And this is, well, it's not good to be called a coward because it's talking about a person who is typically afraid of a lot of things. They're very scared. Somebody who is not brave, you could say that this person is a coward. We could also say that someone is an introvert. And if somebody is an introvert, it means that they are not very social. They're often quiet, a bit reserved. They typically may like to be left alone and have time to themselves. And you could say that this person is an introvert. Now, the opposite of an introvert is an extrovert. And this is somebody who, well, is very social. They like to go out a lot. They like to meet all different types of people. And typically they're very talkative. And you would say that they are an extrovert. I think if you were to think of yourself, like, for example, I think I can be both. Sometimes I am more of an introvert, and other times I might be more of an extrovert, and I like to go out and try to meet people, and I'm a little more social. Introvert and extrovert.
Zelda was the sunny, fun-loving extrovert.
Look at my pumpkin, Mr. Peanut Butter.
Whereas Zoe was the smart, cynical introvert.
My pumpkin's throwing up because Halloween encourages excessive consumption of refined sugar at a time when obesity rates are sky high.
Then we have the noun perfectionist. And if you say that somebody is a perfectionist, it means that this person thinks that, well, everything needs to be perfect, that they will not stop until they believe everything is perfect, and you would say that he or she is a perfectionist. Now, a noun that is a little similar to that, but it's still different, would be someone who is a purist. And if you describe someone as a purist, it means that this person believes that things should be done in the traditional way, that we should follow the rules, we shouldn't do them in some other way, follow tradition, and you could describe this person and say that they are a purist.
Triple twist! Nice work! You sure this was done by hand?
Yeah, she's a real purist.
Hate those guys. As a Sesame Street purist, I don't think Elmo usually tells passing women that they have a sweet dumper.
Repeat visitor. Traveling solo? Purist. Getting off on the undiluted experience.
And then we have the noun whiz. And if you describe somebody and say that, well, this person, they are a whiz, it means that they are highly intelligent and very smart in some area or some expertise. For example, you could say that somebody is a math whiz. They're very good at math. They're very intelligent when it comes to math. They're a math whiz. I could say that, all of you are a vocabulary whiz. You are watching these lessons, you're learning new words and phrases, and it's going to help you improve your overall English fluency. you are a vocabulary whiz. I want to teach you some useful and advanced adjectives that you can use to describe people. And this is a great lesson because, well, we talk about people all the time. We describe ourselves. We also talk about our friends, our families, our colleagues. So many of these adjectives really describe someone's personality. Now, when we use adjectives, often we might use them before the noun, in which case they are called attributive adjectives, or they might follow a linking verb, in which case they are a predicate adjective. As we go through these, I will tell you which ones I think are more common as an attributive adjective before the noun, or those that I think are more commonly found in the predicate and would follow a linking verb. So let's begin with overzealous. This is a great adjective, which means that someone is showing a little too much eagerness or enthusiasm, almost to the point where, well, you find it a little strange that they are this eager or they're this enthusiastic about something, so you could describe that person as being overzealous. So this is an adjective that you can use either before a noun or it can follow a linking verb, either one. So you might describe people and say somebody has overzealous parents. They're showing a lot of enthusiasm for their kids. Her parents are very overzealous. Perhaps when our little girl gets older, maybe I will be an overzealous parent and I will be so enthusiastic about everything she does. Or maybe you have some overzealous colleagues that anything that happens, they're always enthusiastic. Perhaps they're always eager to do things. And you might think, well, they're a little overzealous. I imagine that you guys are overzealous students, that you are so excited to build and learn new vocabulary. During the concert, some overzealous fans ran onto the stage. Next is tenacious. This adjective means that somebody is just not giving up, perhaps stubbornly, that they just absolutely refuse to give up, even though maybe they should. Now, when I think of this word, I actually think it's used in more of a positive manner when you describe somebody as tenacious and they are not giving up, they refuse to give up, they're being very stubborn, but they should keep going. It is a good thing that they don't give up in that sense if you want to say, she is a tenacious student. She refuses to give up no matter how difficult it is, she's tenacious. Even though he's short, he always gives a tenacious effort. Then we have candid. And if you say that someone is candid, then basically you're just saying that this person is truthful and that they are honest. So we can use this adjective and describe someone and say that they are a candid person, or perhaps they give a candid response to a question. Personally, I think it's maybe more common to follow the linking verb to be, and you would describe somebody that he is candid or she is candid. They are truthful and honest, and if you're describing somebody in that way, it's almost like you're trying to say, well, this person can be believed. We can trust this person because they are candid and they give candid responses. And I guess I'm just going to keep using the word candid again and again so that it helps you remember the meaning. This candid photo shows some of the poor living conditions surrounding the city. Next is facetious, and this is one of my favorite adjectives. Now, the first thing that I want to point out is the pronunciation, because looking at this adjective, it may not be pronounced the way that it's spelled, facetious. That first syllable is going to have that schwa, that fa, and we're just basically going to pronounce the letter C, facetious, facetious. And what it means is that somebody is joking, and they're not being serious, and perhaps in an inappropriate way. In a sense, they should be serious, but they're joking around. They are being facetious. And I think it's commonly used just like that, that in some kind of situation, you're talking to somebody else and you're joking with this person. Perhaps they don't know about it, and you have to tell them and say, look, I'm being facetious. I'm joking. I'm not being serious. So that is a phrase that you might often hear with this word, somebody actually having to tell the other person and say, wait, I'm being facetious. Or maybe you could say that of another person. If somebody doesn't understand that this person is joking, you say, well, look, he's being facetious. She's being facetious. They are joking. They're not being serious. they're being facetious. Sometimes it's hard to take my boss seriously because he's always being facetious. Then we have the word obtuse. Now, this is not a good adjective. You don't want to be called obtuse because what it means is that somebody is lacking in intelligence and maybe they're a bit slow to understand. And you would often use it with the linking verb to be and say that someone is obtuse, that they are slow to understand, and you could describe that person and say, yeah, he's a bit obtuse. He's slow to understand. He's not a very smart person. They're obtuse. Or if there's a situation and somebody, it's like they don't want to hear the truth and they're trying to deny it and they don't want to listen. And you could say, well, they are being obtuse, that they refuse to believe what is obvious, what is sensible, but they just don't want to believe it. They're being obtuse. Sometimes my uncle can be so obtuse, he refuses to listen to anyone. Next is the word boorish. And again, it's not a great adjective. You don't want to be referred to as a boorish person because it means that someone is rude or insensitive. And often I think it's used before the noun behavior. And this is a commonly used collocation, and you might describe somebody's behavior as boorish, their boorish behavior. It's rude, it's insensitive, they may exhibit boorish behavior. Keep in mind that this adjective is unrelated to the word boring. That is a very common adjective, but they have different meanings. If somebody is boorish, they are rude or insensitive. Boorish behavior. His boorish behavior caused me to hang up on him. Then we have jittery, and this is another great adjective, and it's used to describe someone who is nervous and they are unable to relax. Often I think it's used as a predicate adjective, and you'd say someone is jittery. So there is probably some kind of situation that would make someone nervous. They're unable to relax, and you could describe them as jittery. Perhaps they have to give a very important presentation. And before the presentation, you could say, wow, he's really jittery. It's also used in a situation that if somebody they're unable to relax because they want to leave. For example, I have been in some very long teachers' meetings in my life, and the meetings just go on and on and on. And I don't want to sit there anymore, and I start to get jittery. I start moving around, I start shaking my legs, and I want to get out of there. I can't relax, I'm jittery. The boy was so jittery, he had a tough time staying seated. Then we have capricious. Now with this one, again, let's first look at the pronunciation. That first syllable has the schwa sound, that sound, and then the pri is just pronounced as pre. Capricious. Capricious. And what this means is that someone or something is impulsive or unpredictable. So you could use this adjective and say that, well, the weather is capricious, it's unpredictable, you don't know what's going to happen. Or if you describe a person as capricious, it makes me think of somebody who maybe they make a decision and then they change their mind almost immediately and want to do something else. And then they change their mind again and want to do something completely different. You could say that they are capricious. Or maybe a person is a capricious shopper. Capricious shopper. Capricious shopper. That's hard to say. Capricious shopper. Capricious shopper. Capricious shopper. I actually would just say that that person is capricious, that they are impulsive, they are unpredictable, and you might describe them as capricious. Because of his capricious nature, he couldn't commit to chewing just one thing. Then we have the adjective gullible. And this just means that a person is easily persuaded to believe something. Essentially, they just believe whatever you tell them. They are gullible. It often follows that verb to be. And I think we've all met people before in our lives who are pretty gullible. Whatever you tell them, they just believe you. So this is a great example of when, if you are being facetious, They are not going to understand that you're joking. They will believe you because they are gullible. And then you would have to tell them, look, I'm being facetious. I'm not being serious. I think it's also used to describe somebody in a temporary situation because, let's be honest, we've all been gullible at one point or another. So in that case, I think of perhaps somebody is trying to trick somebody else, or maybe there is some sort of scam. And for some reason, you fall for it. You're not thinking clearly. You could say, I was just gullible. I don't know why I believe this thing, but I did. I was gullible. I couldn't believe I fell for this internet scam. I was so gullible. Then we have adamant. And this adjective means that a person is refusing to change their mind or be persuaded. Often, I think this adjective is followed by the preposition about. You are adamant about something, that you just refuse to believe anything else. And often I think of maybe some sort of cause that a person is fighting for. They are very passionate about this cause, and you could say they are adamant about this thing. I am adamant about protecting the environment. I am adamant about teaching you guys vocabulary. I refuse to believe that you will not learn and build your vocabulary. I am adamant about teaching it to you. I think we can all think of different things that we are adamant about, that we just want this thing to happen. We won't be persuaded otherwise. You are adamant about something. The doctor was adamant she have surgery immediately. Then we have feckless, and this is used to describe a person who is weak or ineffective and just really lacking in the strength of character, that this person is feckless. And I think it might be also used to describe somebody's personality or their traits. For example, you might say that someone is a feckless leader. They are an ineffective leader because they lack that strong character. They are feckless. The coach's feckless leadership led the team to their worst record in school history. So I want to be honest, I want to be candid with you that when you are building your vocabulary, I hope that 2 adjectives that I could use to describe you would be overzealous, that you are just eager to learn new words, and that you're tenacious too, that you are not going to give up for whatever reason. So that is what I hope for, and I am absolutely not being facetious when I say that. I'd also like you to do a little bit of an association trick right now. If I just say the word jittery, who are you thinking about in your life? Try to associate these words with somebody that you know, because that's going to help you better remember the meaning and actually retain that information, and you won't forget it. I'm going to teach you some different words and phrases that you can use so that you can be very specific if you want to talk about another person and describe their personality, their behavior. So there are different adjectives and nouns that we can use to describe people, and I want to start with some adjectives. So the first word that I have for you is charismatic, and you could say that someone is charismatic, which means that this person has a natural influence over other people, and they can easily get people's attention. Just because you say that someone is charismatic, that does not mean that it's a good thing. It sounds like a good thing, and it can be a compliment, but it does not always mean that the person you're talking about is a good person. It's really just their behavior, the way they act. They have that influence, and they can easily get people's attention, well, because of the way they talk, the way they speak, and you could say that, yes, this person is charismatic.
The most popular, scandal-free athletes of all time. He's heroic, he's charismatic, and he's retiring.
The charismatic guy promising to make America great again.
You're the most remarkable person I know, and I've met Jaleel White, incredibly charismatic.
You mean to tell me this all happened because you were messing with the Shadow Man?
He was very charismatic.
Then we have the word chatty. And if somebody is chatty, it just means that, well, they like to talk a lot, usually in a very friendly and informal way. You could say he or she is chatty. Now, the one thing I would say about this word is that it's often used to make an observation about someone else. You wouldn't often hear people say that, oh, I'm so chatty. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but you would use it more to make an observation and talk about the way somebody else is acting, that they are talking a lot. And you could use it to describe a person's, somebody's personality. You could say that he or she is a chatty person. But you could also use it to describe maybe somebody's temporary behavior, because if a person just doesn't usually talk a lot and then suddenly one day they're very talkative, you could tell them, wow, you're a bit chatty today.
What was I saying?
She's so chatty. Maybe my parents are right. Maybe I'd be better off with an Indian girl.
Something wrong?
Boy, someone's in a chatty mood. But you can start with clearing those empties.
Great. I'll get right on it.
Not very chatty today, are you?
I don't know. Is there something you wanted to talk about?
And the next word that I have for you, the next adjective is surly. And this just means that someone is not very friendly and they're often in a bad mood. Let me show you a picture which really captures this word right here. All right. Now, we would often use these words to describe people, but you could use them to describe animals as well. This picture, it is a perfect example of surly, because that is one surly cat.
Sometimes you can come off a little surly.
What? I'm not surly.
That's it. She gets very surly when you disobey a direct order.
You're a different breed than our sort. You're surly, suspicious. You don't play well with others.
Then we have the phrase level-headed. And if you describe someone as level-headed, it means that this person is calm and they're able to easily deal with difficult situations. And I think it's definitely a good thing if somebody calls you level-headed. I think that all of us probably want to be level-headed and think that we can solve difficult situations and remain calm.
LA's so nice.
Everyone's so genuine and level-headed.
Okay, first of all, women don't like to be called dame. Second, women appreciate calm, level-headed, and responsible.
Mom, I'm not stoned. I'm completely fine. In fact, I'm more clear and level-headed than I've ever been.
Then we have the phrase easygoing, and this is used to describe someone who is, well, they're very relaxed and they don't easily get worried or upset. And you could say that, well, this person, they're just easygoing. Nothing bothers them. They don't worry about anything because they're easygoing.
I've always thought I was pretty easygoing, you know? It's not like I have the big issues.
Disappointed with you, Margot.
But you seem so easygoing. Thought you'd let me try on a dress.
What can I say? I'm an easygoing gal.
Next is absent-minded, and this phrase is used to describe someone who easily forgets things, or they're just not really paying attention to the things that are happening around them. And you could say that this person is a little absent-minded. I think it happens to all of us. I forget things from time to time, and yeah, I would say that I can be absent-minded.
Waving goodbye with an absent-minded smile.
I thought you'd know about it.
And so we do. Of course we do. I'm sorry, I was being absent-minded.
Oh, yes, of course. She is an old dear, but a little absent-minded.
Then I have a couple of phrases that I'm going to put them together, and that is above average and below average. And these phrases are used to describe someone that is, well, higher or lower or better or worse than the usual amount or level. So you would use these phrases just to be a little more specific about your opinion as to this person's, perhaps their ability. And you could say that somebody is a below average tennis player. Or maybe I guess I would like to think that I am an above average English teacher. That's what I'd like to think. But these are great phrases that you can use when you want to describe maybe even your own ability or talk about somebody else's ability, above average or below average.
Wow.
With above average height comes above average responsibility.
Until then, I'll just keep bringing him his below average pancakes and soggy bacon.
Do you think I'm an idiot?
Yeah, I'd say you possess above average intelligence.
Corporal Dawson was given a below average rating. Committed a crime.
Then we have the adjective grumpy. And if you say that someone is grumpy, it means that they are easily annoyed, and maybe they're usually complaining. They're complaining about something. You could say, gosh, you're always so grumpy. And to give you another example, let's just bring up another cat. Here, this is a picture of a grumpy cat. Now let's switch and talk about some nouns that can be used to describe people. And the first one, because we just talked about someone who may be grumpy, is a grump. All right, we can use this word as a noun as well. And a grump is a person who's not a very friendly person, and it's somebody who usually is complaining about something. You could say that this person is a grump, or you could have a little fun with the word and throw the adjective and noun together and say that somebody is a grumpy grump. They are really complaining a lot. They're a grumpy grump.
Stanley Hudson is a grump. Everybody knows that.
Miss Mullins is out today, so we have Mr. Cooper teach us biology. Such a grump.
No way! I bet you'd make way more money being nice than being a big grumpy grump to everyone all the time.
The next noun that I have for you is a jack of all trades. And if you say that somebody is a jack of all trades, it refers to a person that is capable of doing many different jobs, and they would typically do those jobs well. And when I say different jobs, I'm talking about a variety of really different things. So perhaps somebody is able to fix cars. This person is a great programmer. This person is an excellent cook. And they can do all of these different things, and they are very capable at doing them. You could say that he or she is a jack of all trades.
What if Big Head is sort of like a floating utility player, kind of like a jack of all trades?
Listen, I'm so much more, man. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, if you will.
The next phrase I have for you is a dark horse. And this just refers to a person who is not expected to succeed or win, but then they suddenly do. They suddenly do win, and you could say that this person, wow, they were a dark horse, but they won the competition. So often it is used in that context when talking about some competition.
Ooh, a dark horse candidate. Late entry to the race.
What's this? No, a dark horse is challenging Gagne.
Any contestants worth mentioning?
Maybe. There's kind of a dark horse in the running.
So, here it is one more time, the dark horse for this year's Christmas #1. Christmas is all around. Thank you, Billy.
Then we have the phrase black sheep, which refers to a person who embarrasses a group or a family because they're different in some way, and perhaps they've done something, they've gotten into trouble, or they've done something wrong, and because of that, and they've embarrassed the family, you could say that he or she is a black sheep. Now, it does not always have to mean that they've done something wrong. It could just be that they're just different in some way, and maybe everybody else thinks it's a little strange. I think within all families, there is somebody, maybe a brother, sister, aunt, uncle, cousin, who is a little different from everyone else, and maybe other people think that it's a little strange. You could say that this person is a black sheep.
Third brother in the middle.
Gary, I heard.
Yeah, the black sheep. A drunk.
Do you know what's a black sheep?
No.
It's like when you're different to everyone else. The Coens are like family, Neil.
Maybe they're about to become the black sheep.
Everybody thinks I'm the black sheep. Well, I'll show them what a black sheep can do.
Then we have the phrase know-it-all. And this refers to a person that they think they know everything. And you could describe them and say that he or she is a know-it-all. And this is a phrase that you wouldn't use it as a compliment. So it's not something you would say about yourself, but if somebody else, they're not being very humble and they're being a little too proud, they think they're so smart, you could tell them and say, oh, you're such a know-it-all.
Which means you're not taking your Synthroid like you should.
You're such a know-it-all.
She's so
rigid and demanding. She's a complete know-it-all.
Hey, it's me. The know-it-all.
What are you doing here?
Next is the phrase wise guy, and this refers to a person who is trying to be clever in a way that's a little annoying. So typically you would say this to a person, not really to be very mean to them, but really just kind of call them out on the way they are behaving, the way they're acting. They're trying to be clever, but they're really being a little annoying. And say, oh, you're such a wise guy. Stop being such a wise guy.
Delivery right here.
I caught a bad pepperoni.
A wise guy. Okay. Hey, who's the wise guy?
Hey, does this look like a petting zoo to you, huh? Okay, all right, wise guy. You just earned a timeout.
Then we have the phrase stick in the mud. And this is one of my favorite phrases. It's a noun that's used to describe somebody who is old-fashioned and they just kind of want to avoid having fun. If somebody does not like to have fun and they're kind of ruining it for everyone else, you could say that they are a stick in the mud. Typically, if somebody is a surly person and maybe they're just complaining because they're so grumpy, you could tell them that they are a stick in the mud as well.
Why don't y'all take a few pictures, have a few laughs? Jeez, Eddie, what are y'all stick in the mud?
You were a stick in the mud when we judged that beauty pageant, and you're being a stick in the mud now.
I am not a stick in the mud. I just want to stop a party from happening.
Then we have the phrase yes man, and this is talking about a person who is always trying to please a superior, and they are saying things and doing things in order to please that person. I think it's often used in the context of work, because if somebody is always trying to make their boss happy, and whatever their boss asks them to do, they just say yes.
Andy's a yes man.
Not all the time. Sometimes I'll say I don't like something. He says he doesn't like it either.
It's very presidential of me, don't you think?
Absolutely.
You're not turning into a yes man, are you?
I'm becoming a corporate yes man. I'm like, yes, Mr. George Bush. Whatever you say, Mr. George Bush.
Then we have the word sitter. Now, this noun refers to someone who takes care of someone else. Now, I think the word is shortened. Typically, it's used to refer to a babysitter. A babysitter, someone who takes care and looks after a baby. But it could be shortened to just a sitter. You can also use this with other nouns as well. For example, you could say that somebody is a house sitter and they are taking care and looking after another person's house. Or perhaps they are a dog sitter or a cat sitter and they are taking care of somebody else's pets. A babysitter, a house sitter, a cat sitter, a dog sitter, a pet sitter. I think that's about it for sitters.
3 cities in 6 days. My head is just pounding. I'm not ready for a dinner party.
I already got a sitter.
Can you cancel her?
So what you're saying is if I can get an acceptable babysitter here before you leave, I can go patrol. Babysitter? I'm 14. I'm old enough to be a babysitter.
And thank you for reminding me I can't find a friggin' cat sitter.
I'm not going. Cheddar's regular dog sitter is ill.
I wonder if he'd know enough to go to my brother's place.
In Paris?
Maybe they have a house sitter.
So I hope you learned some new words and phrases, and I'm sure that you will remember them because you are not absent-minded. You are a very level-headed person. You will remember these words and phrases, and I hope that you can use them if you're having a conversation. Maybe you're feeling a little chatty and you're talking to other people, and you can practice using these words and phrases and just tell them how much you know, but maybe they will think that you are a know-it-all. All right. If you enjoyed the lesson, please hit that like button. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.